Sorry, is there something you want?
Well, I think what I need to do is actually share a specific screen, right? Because now I don't see any notes.
Oh, you have notes as well.
Right.
Okay.
So what I need to do, can I just have a look?
Yes, we can probably make 2 desktops, one which is shared, one which
Yeah,
is not.
that's what we need to do. So I need to get.
Right, so your notes are on this as well.
Yeah, so I need to do it like. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's the idea of it, right? You have notes and the thing on the same thing. So that's what I kind of wanted to try.
Cool thing.
It is a cool thing, but I think I feel it's
We're not
like
quite ready for
massively backfiring in this specific situation.
I wonder if I can get Alice to check if the camera will zoom better because she fixed it last time. Do you know how to do it?
I have no idea.
So I want another. How do I get another? How do I get another? Should I get another display?
Is it down at the bottom? Display settings.
No, it's why you need to. There you go. So now I need to move this. Like that. Okay, and then I need to move. Where's it? This one to there, and I need to go here.
Oh, okay.
Oh no! Now you're still seeing this.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I think so this one. Yeah, because we're currently sharing it on a screen.
Oh man, this is not. Okay, so why don't you do the stream? Man,
Yeah.
this is so complex.
Yeah. Wait, so can you
Oh
send
wait,
us the
stop mirroring. There you go.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So now I'm gonna bring this over here.
Okay, yeah, awesome, yeah.
All right.
And then you can have the slides up here.
And I'm gonna do my.
But then at the same time, we have to like click through the slides.
Yeah,
which
that's
the
not
pain.
gonna work. I mean, is there anyone actually?
Which is like.
I'm happy to do that, or one of us can do that.
So how do I get to my? Oh, it's like that. Oh yeah. All right. So mind the messy background, but this is actually working. Awesome.
Oh wow!
Alright.
Oh yeah. Wait, this is good. So, do we still need the camera sorted? Or?
I mean, can we just use his one right here? Is that all right? I mean,
For the slides, I mean, for StreamYard slides.
Oh yeah, wait. Let me.
Do you have that? So,
Like I'm not gonna touch this anymore because I don't know what we did, but it works.
yeah.
It just feels like an accomplishment on its own. Does this? Am I supposed to use this?
Which one?
I can move the slides. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
we're chilling. Yeah, should we get started? Then I think we're
Alright.
using your mic here.
Well, what do I use for this room?
That's
Or
the
just
big,
door?
well, since we can't plug it in, so we just really can't do it. But I mean, we should be able to hear it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But then for the stream, it'll pick up from here.
I hope so.
Yeah, it will.
Do you want to test it?
We should be able to hear it.
Okay.
I mean, I could do this.
All right. I think James wants to do an introduction. So
Get him to.
yeah.
But if you want to angle it, oh, I think.
So which side is it?
Okay, cool. Perfect. Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So today we've got a very special guest. We've got Gideon Paul van Dijk, who is the CEO of Charge Trip. So Gideon's actually come all the way from the Netherlands, and he was born in Amsterdam. So his background is in physics and maths, and he is an alumnus of Atlantic College. He's also an ex-RNLI crew member, an occasional speaker on energy optimization strategies. So he's a serial entrepreneur and a climate tech board member, and today he's going to tell you about climate tech startups, the challenges, and what the opportunities are today. Over to you, Gideon.
All right. So we've got no mic. So if I don't talk loud enough, please just come forward. Sorry for messing a little bit with the setup, but I'm trying out this tool from friends of mine that have like a new presenter thing. I can recommend it, but it just doesn't really translate well to Beamer systems. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, James. So I actually never finished my physics degree, so I'm pretty sure I'm outsmarted by the collective energy knowledge here, but I'm happy to be here and pretty humbling to be able to tell you a little bit about what we do and why I think it's worth doing. And I hope my thoughts on climate tech are useful to you. And if you have any questions, just interrupt. It's a small group, so we can just be informal about it. So this is not the normal talk I give. Normally, my topics would be a little bit more scientific, something about strategy for energy supply chain optimization or data transparency regulations. But you asked specifically to tell a little bit about what it's like to run a VC-backed climate startup. It's a lot of fun, but it's also very challenging. So happy to do that. Yeah, we can sidetrack a little bit in mechanical energy consumption prediction optimizations for battery electric vehicles, if that's interesting to you, or about accelerating the advent of sustainable transportation. That's probably what I know most about, but just, yeah, very happy to tell you a little bit about my journey in climate tech. And I was sitting in the train today, and I thought I'd start by talking a little bit about COP27 as it's happening right now, and it's showing all the signs of being remarkably disappointing again. But it is a good primer to climate tech in the sense that it's a good primer to show whether a climate tech startup actually has the impact that we kind of need it to have at the moment. But maybe before that, I'd like to explain to you a little bit about how I got here and why it's important for me to talk to students, because, I mean, commercially, going around universities is not something that we do, but it's very interesting for me to be here because I think most of you are either thinking about pursuing a career in academia or some sort of commercial engineering. And I just like to speak a little bit on what I'd hope you consider in that journey. Now, I'm aware that feels a little bit like you've invited a wolf into a hen house, but that's not the case. I have great respect for academia, and I'm sure you'll have impact regardless, great impact regardless. But I'd like to put a statement to you about climate tech, and maybe if there's time for Q&A, or maybe just at the end we can just get the temperature in the room and see how you feel about that. But so beyond urgency, climate tech, does it actually get, so beyond urgency, climate tech for me offers like a far greater impact than traditional metrics for academic success. Now, I'm not going to say this is true specifically, but I'd like it for you to sink in a little bit, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about that later. Because for me, it's just very important that we get a lot of smart people to help with these massive challenges that we're facing. And in academia, you have this luxury where you can ask questions and then try to solve those for a decade or two, right? And we don't really have that luxury to sit around for a decade now. We need to really implement solutions. Part of those is technical solutions, and part of those are trying to change human behavior. And we just need a lot of human capital to make that happen. So back to Mr. Gutierrez, who delivered pretty much an identical speech as last year, which on its own should already cause for concern. But if we think about climate tech, then pretty much every technological solution discussed at COP26, which was last year in Glasgow, focuses on three main resources, right? So there's non-emitting electricity generated by either hydropower or by renewables or by nuclear fission. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for ITER. You probably know a little bit more about it than I do, but we're ways off there. Yes, and then there's obviously there's biomass. And the total demand for all those resources required by the plans discussed last year, and it will be the same this year, can absolutely not be met, right? So we're losing the race there. So essentially, we consider climate tech to be a solution deployed to increase any of these specific resources. Not so much the software side. We're mostly focusing on asset-based solutions there. But to me, that summit last year and also this year, and I mean, we're still in the middle of it, but the climate summit in Glasgow specifically was a failure because it was predicated on the fiction that technology alone will solve the problem of climate change, right? And that's obviously a great solution for high emitters, right? Oil companies and gas companies. I mean, it's really easy to look at technology and try to offset some of your R&D costs in that technology, but it simply doesn't scale, right? So and it's quite detrimental to people that actually are affected greatly by climate change, usually in poorer countries. So technology won't solve the problem simply because it cannot scale sufficiently in the time that we have left, right? So if we define that time frame as, what is that, the next 28 years, right? So 2050 was our goal, to be below at least 2 degrees. We're trying for 1.5, but that's not happening. But essentially, if you're basing your entire meeting, this entire UN meeting, on the assumption that technology will solve a climate crisis, and specifically climate tech, the field that we work in, you're kind of avoiding the discussion that real solutions that require specific restraints on a number of activities, mostly in rich countries, that can scale very rapidly. You're avoiding that very specifically, which means that we're making the wrong turns, right? And I mean, we're doing that willingly. Like in the words of Kendrick, I got to see the Kendrick Lamar show yesterday, so I was very inspired on the train. But he has this line where he says, "Be it will or wheel alignment." Essentially, we're doing that very willingly, and it's very detrimental to what we can achieve within climate tech. So then, I mean, here's a bit on numbers, right? I think everyone here likes numbers, so. Average over the world, we currently have about 4 kilowatt hours a day of N electricity, so that's anything that's non-emitting per person, and we're growing that a little bit. We do about 0.1, I think it's actually a little bit less, but it's about 0.1 watt hours a day annually. But we say we need about 32 kilowatt hours. So that's about times 10. So that's out the window. And then we say that we currently have about 6 kilograms of CCS, if we actually have that, but of CCS per person per year, and we're growing that at about 0.1 kilograms a year annually. But we require about 3,600 kilograms of this. And this is just sort of to try and deliver on these goals that we've set. And obviously these goals shift every year as we have a new, but I mean, what you should get from this is that essentially we're being set up to fail, right? And our mitigation strategy here is to bet on technology, where probably the hardest bit of this is fighting humans' neglect to change. So with the time that we have left to reach the goals that we set, we cannot really scale technology fast enough. What you're seeing here is the results of our bet on technology over the last couple of years. So every year, the Systems Change Lab brings out a report about the state of climate action. This is 2022. They always do it just before the new COP. And I mean, we're not going to go through this list, right? But it doesn't take a genius to see that we're doing extremely poorly. And in my opinion, this is the result of us betting on technology to solve these problems, where we need a much more holistic solution that's mostly trying to motivate people to change what they're doing today. And technology can have a really big part on that. It's just a different type of climate tech than we're now defining. So we simply can't scale current technology quickly enough. And scale pretty much is the only thing that matters, right, when we discuss plans for mitigating climate change. And I think that's quite interesting to focus on, that any type of new technology, whether that's asset-based or software-based, has quite a significant innovation roadmap that it has to go through to become deployable, especially if you want to deploy it at scale. And a little bit later, I'm pretty happy to talk about what we're doing at ChargeTrip specifically, but we're meeting the exact same challenges, like we're seeing the exact same challenges all the time. And scalability, just beyond finding funding or finding users, but actually deploying this in a meaningful way that has impact, is just